All right, so we were just having a wonderful meal. I'm home, and it's wonderful to see my mother. And we were having a deep conversation as usual. This is where I get it from. And we were having a conversation, and I was telling her about how I believe, or I had this realization that I'm a great listener, and I can ask questions, and that helps with the podcast and interviews and jobs and relationships, because I can listen. And I thought that I was just like quiet and introverted my entire life. And then she said, well, Ben, part of that isn't true. That's just one story you're telling yourself. And so what was the one line that you said, Mom, that it blew me away?
I said that none of us are just one story, and that we tend to think in absolutes. So we think we're either introverted or extroverted, or like in this case, Ben was saying either he wasn't a good communicator or he was, or if he was introverted, he must not have spoken up for himself. And so I reminded you of a couple of times you did speak up that were specific, and that you were, even as a young child, you spoke up in class about something you had, a very personal story. And so it's about our beliefs about ourselves. So we all have lies we tell ourselves. And when I share this with people, they often go, what do you mean I tell myself a lie?
And then this was the lie, right?
Yeah.
And which was so cool. And I think that whether it's, you grew up in poverty, or maybe you were something seriously like raped or abused, or you were just depressed, or even something as like you were a jock and that's all you are, right? But that's not true. That's just part of it. And I think that's so true, that we are not one story unless that's the only story you choose to tell.
Right. And the only story you believe, and the only story you've ever defined yourself by.
Yeah.
And so in this respect, you were saying, maybe you didn't feel like you had a voice, or you weren't a communicator, but there's some very specific things you said and did and spoke about that were very memorable to me, where you did have a voice and you did speak up and you did share your feelings in a very vulnerable way. And I think that sometimes it's easy to discount those things if we do just see ourselves as this absolute, because that's how we describe ourselves in our social circles. We're this way or that way, or people will say, well, I'm a victim because I was abused, or I was robbed, or I was mugged. Well, yes, you were a victim of that circumstance, but you are not a victim, period. You have a lot of other components to you. And so I think for all of us, for me, every single day, my personality tends to be one where I'm outspoken and I'll speak my mind, and that can offend people. And I don't always offend people, but if I do say something that maybe comes across as too harsh, or too strong, or too opinionated, sometimes a person will say, oh, you're too opinionated. And for many years, I thought to myself, oh, I need to hold in my opinions and my voice and keep quiet. I was never able to do that, but but that isn't just one way. I'm not just one way. I have the ability to also, I'm very empathetic and understanding, but there are circumstances where I am really outspoken, probably more opinionated.
And that's Montana.
That's my baby.
But yeah, anyway, the point of that is that, we're just not one thing. So if that's all you are,
Montana.
It's real.
It's live.
It's live. But yeah, so that really hit me, in something that I was like, oh yeah, like we're just not one thing. Like we're many things. And to remember that.
Yeah, and to even remember that in our judgments of each other, because we also want to judge others as being just one way.
Ooh, I think that's key too.
Yeah, especially if we're bugged by them and we say, oh, they're this way and they're that way. But the same is true for, other people as well as for ourselves.
Yeah.
We're a mixed bag of feelings and emotions and strengths and weaknesses and personality traits and our history and our family and our DNA and our community upbringing, it's all mixed in there.
Yeah, it's easier just, I'm gone. But yeah, it's just easier to say to put an identifier or a label on someone.
It's so much easier. Yeah, but it's taking...
Or ourselves. Other people, ourselves.
Yeah, it's because it's so much easier to judge versus being more just understanding and kind. And I think we do that out of fear. I know I do that out of fear. I'm more judgmental or critical when I'm in a place of fear versus a place of being open-hearted and loving. If I'm afraid or if I'm shut down because I've been hurt or I'm going through a hard time, it's not as easy for me to be loving and open and kind.
I love it. Well, thank you, Mom. That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love ya.
Love